The laughter started the moment she cleared the snow from the broken stone walls. It echoed across the mountain valley, sharp and careless, carried by the winter wind, as if it wanted her to hear every word. People said she had finally lost her mind, that grief had driven her to hide inside ruins that even time had abandoned. Yet on that cold morning, as frost clung to the earth and the sky hung low and gray, Hannah Whitmore stood alone among the ancient stones with a quiet certainty that refused to leave her heart. If you believe in silent heroes and second chances, and in people who keep going even when the world laughs at them, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps stories like this find the people who need them most. Hannah was a Christian woman in her late 30s living in a remote part of the United States, near land most people forgot existed. Long before she arrived, those ruins had been there. Thick stone walls, half collapsed, remnants of settlement built generations earlier by hands that knew survival better than comfort. Locals treated the place like a curiosity, something to point at during hikes or warn children to stay away from. To Hannah, it felt like shelter. Her life before the mountains had been ordinary and full. She worked as a school librarian, volunteered at church, and believed deeply in steady routines and small joys. Then illness came quietly and stayed loudly. Her husband's diagnosis drained not only their savings, but their energy, their plans, and finally their future together. When he passed, Hannah felt as though the world had narrowed into a cold, empty hallway with no doors left open. She tried to stay where she was. She tried to keep teaching, smiling, attending services where people spoke gently and avoided her eyes. But the grief pressed in everywhere. The walls of her rented apartment felt thin, as if sorrow leaked through them at night. Eventually, she sold what little she had left and drove north, chasing silence more than answers. The land near the ruins was cheap, almost given away. No one wanted to build there. Winters were brutal, winds unforgiving, and utilities nearly non-existent. Hannah didn't see obstacles. She saw a place where expectations ended. When she first walked among the stones, she noticed something others hadn't cared to feel. The air inside the broken walls was calmer, still, warmer, even in late autumn. The stones held the day's heat long after the sun slipped away. She researched endlessly, reading about thermal mass, ancient architecture, and how old civilizations built not for beauty, but survival. Slowly, an idea formed. She wouldn't tear the ruins down. She wouldn't restore them for show. She would build within them, respecting what already stood, letting the past protect the present. When construction began, the neighbors noticed. They watched her haul reclaimed wood, seal gaps, and reinforced stone walls already thicker than anything modern builders used. They laughed when she worked alone, when snow fell early and she refused help she couldn't afford. They said the place was cursed, unsafe, foolish. Hannah heard them, but she was too tired to argue and too focused to quit. Some days were unbearable. Cold seeped into her hands until she couldn't feel her fingers. Her back ached constantly. There were nights she slept in her truck, crying quietly, wondering if this was another mistake added to a long list of losses. But every morning, she prayed before returning to work, asking not for comfort, but for purpose. By the time winter fully arrived, the cabin was finished. Not polished, not impressive, but solid. Inside the ancient stone walls, Hannah had built a simple wooden structure, insulated with natural materials and sealed carefully. From the outside, it looked strange, almost invisible, blending into the ruins as if it had always been there. Then came the cold. Temperatures dropped sharply, the kind of cold that cracked trees and froze breath midair. Neighbors fired up heaters, burned through fuel, and complained about bills. They waited for Hannah to fail. They expected her to leave, to admit defeat, to abandon the ruins like everyone else had. Instead, something extraordinary happened. Inside her cabin, the temperature stayed nearly 20 degrees warmer than outside. The thick stone walls absorbed and retained heat, shielding the interior from harsh winds. A small stove warmed the space efficiently, and at night, the warmth lingered. Hannah slept without layers of blankets, without fear. For the first time since her husband's passing, she felt safe. She noticed it most during a storm that lasted 3 days. Snow piled high, Roads closed and power lines went down. Hannah lit a candle and read scripture by soft firelight, the stone walls holding steady. Outside, the world howled. Inside, there was peace. When the storm finally passed, word spread. People talked about frozen pipes, cracked walls, unbearable cold. Someone mentioned Hannah hadn't left. Curiosity replaced mockery. One neighbor came by first, then another. They stepped inside, stunned by the warmth. No loud explanations were needed. The difference could be felt instantly. The same ruins they had dismissed were now sheltering life. Hannah didn't celebrate. She simply opened her door wider. She shared soup, firewood, and quiet understanding. She listened to worries, to regrets, to questions people were only now brave enough to ask. Slowly, the laughter disappeared. Over the next months, visitors arrived not to mock, but to learn. Builders asked about the design. Families asked if something like this could help them. Hannah shared everything she knew, never charging, never boasting. She believed knowledge, like warmth, was meant to be shared. What surprised her most was how her heart changed. Grief didn't vanish, but it softened. The ruins that once mirrored her brokenness now stood as proof that something old and damaged could still protect and sustain life. Hannah realized she hadn't chosen the ruins by accident. She had chosen them because they understood survival. Spring came gently that year. Snow melted slowly, revealing wildflowers growing between stones laid centuries earlier. Hannah stood outside her cabin one morning, sunlight warming the walls, and felt gratitude settle where sorrow once lived. She thought of her husband, of the life they dreamed of, and felt a quiet assurance that she was still walking forward, just along a different path. The neighbors no longer laughed. They waved. They stopped to talk. Some even thanked her, not just for the warmth she provided during winter, but for reminding them that wisdom doesn't always look modern and courage doesn't always make noise. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that quiet faith and resilience can change lives, please like this video, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and subscribe to the channel so more stories like this can be told. Before the ending, take a moment to comment below and share what this story made you feel, or write one word that represents strength to you. Hannah Whitmore still lives among the ancient ruins, her cabin standing firm within stone walls that once seemed forgotten. And every winter, as temperatures drop and winds rise, her home remains warm, proof that sometimes the past holds the answers we need to survive the future.